2023 public meeting to order.
Nice tie, Bob.
I got it. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Carnahan?
Here.
Mr. Foreman?
Present.
Ms. Bessauer?
Present.
Mr. Sharp?
Here.
Mr. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Capuro?
Present.
Mr. Oliphant?
Here.
Mr. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Salatas?
He's present.
Ms. Abernathy? Present. Ms. Heidi is present.
January 18th, 2023 public meeting, February 1st, 2023 work session, and February 15th, 2023 public meetings. These minutes have been distributed to the commissioners. Do we have any corrections to be made on them? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Dessauer,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Parker. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carnahan?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Bessauer?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Capuro?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. First agenda item, rail side, rezone and preliminary plat. Owner Hen Holdings LLC, 10702 West 141st Avenue, Cedar Lake. Petitioner, you gotta stand all the time.
I do have to stand the whole time.
You did that for sympathy, didn't you?
I didn't want to get beat up tonight, so I got beat up over the weekend.
Petitioner is this law, P.O. Box 980, Cedar Lake, Indiana. Vicinity of 10702 West 141st Avenue, Cedar Lake, Indiana. Petitioner is requesting a rezone from agricultural and R2 residential single family to a planned unit development, PUD, and a preliminary plat for a 28-lot subdivision. Legals in order there, Mr.
Legals are in order. Public hearing may be conducted.
Thank you. Mr. Viss.
Mr. Capuro,
Yes.
thanks for letting us be here this evening. Good to see everyone. Sorry I'm walking wounded a little bit. Volleyball is no longer my sport, so I'd ask John to teach me how to play golf once I'm mobile and dangerous.
You can have that.
Yes, we are here this evening seeking approval for the PUD as proposed. Just a bit of back history here. We met a couple of weeks ago. We were still conducting some ongoing engineering review, as well as there was some ongoing legal. I've had conversation with Dave, and it is my understanding that we are very, very close on the PUD document and development agreement. There's some minor things that we need to tweak and work through, but for the most part, conceptually, all is in good order. Earlier today, and there's been a conversation over the past couple of weeks here on engineering, as well as with myself, legal and town officials, there's been a couple of concerns that have been raised regarding stormwater. I believe, don't want to misquote, but I think Don and Jack, that's been addressed as of earlier today. And I think the chief and main outstanding item that we have here, and again, we're seeking approval this evening, but again, there's dialogue here that I want to share, is on the engineering front and more so on the traffic study front. Concern and question has been raised as to whether or not the increase of traffic that's going to be created here, or the stop and flow, is going to require some further agreement between my client and the town. So there's kind of two different areas that are of importance. The first is directly in front of the proposed development, or kind of offset to the side. So we've got the school corp that's right there, that right now has backup traffic on 141st as they wait to turn left into their driveway, as well as backup on their driveway, turning onto 141st. Now, in review that Robin did this past fall and into this early winter, I believe she's analyzed and showed that by the creation of a right turn lane with my client's proposed development, that's going to offer a remedy to that backup traffic that's waiting to turn left into the school zone. Again, unfortunately, we've got the railway line that's right there that we can't do anything about, but it offers some relief for folks that are going to be turning left. The other item that is created is that there is an increased traffic over time with my client's proposed development, as well as historically with all the development that's going on the lake, continuing to increase. We haven't even taken into account yet the other developments that are going to go up or finish developing on that side of the lake, and we get to the backup that can happen at 141st and Highway 41. It's my understanding that the county has been in dialogue since maybe 2018, 2019, I believe, with a proposed right turn lane. And the concern that's still being evaluated is with an increased traffic over time, folks staggering on the right to go to the right turn lane, does that inhibit or limit folks that are going up to 41 to turn left? Now, from the traffic study review, there's 2 times a day that this backup occurs, and that's when school is going in, so to speak, at around 8 o'clock, and when school is letting out. Those are the 2 peak times that that backup occurs. Other than that, so it's at those times that the intersection of Highway 41 and 141st, when our development is at max capacity, turns into what is called an F rating, which is a rating that INDOT doesn't like. The remainder of the day, it's not at that point, okay? And then the other item that we do have is 141st, kind of the kitty corner intersection with the school corporation. So the question, and it's a good question that has been raised by Don and town officials, is does further study need to be evaluated for the proposed traffic that's going to increase over time, that both my client's development may contribute to, the ongoing development is going to contribute to, and future development will contribute to, and is there some form of agreement of some form that needs to happen between my clients and the town before we seek full approval from this body and others moving forward? That's the question that I just wanted to start with this evening. And I guess Don and Chris and Dave, you let me know if I've misstated this. It's an opportunity for resolution, really. It's a problem or an opportunity for resolution that's been created by all the development that's been put in. It's going to be an ongoing problem. Whether or not my client's development goes in, it's going to continue with all the traffic that's funneled through 141st, with all the development that happens on this side of the lake that's going to happen on the south side of the lake. Don has expressed to me that his traffic engineer needs, I think, until the end of the week or early next week to evaluate this, to really make a proposal or recommendation to the town. My client's perceptions, we'd love to move forward. We've got folks that are lined up to go April 1st. They've got it on the docket. So the question remains, can we agree to something this evening or not? But I guess even before we get to that point, I just wanted to more so raise this as a policy question of what's the commission's perception as to what involvement do you perceive perhaps that my client should have with any ongoing developments of 141st beyond what's directly in front of their property.
Well, I can say that when you drop your kids off at the junior high and you leave and go to 41 and or pick them up, it's a cluster, right? We all know that. And like you mentioned, those 2 times a day. So you're building a decel lane, if you will, across the whole front of your property presently? Off 141st?
From basically the railroad track to the point where you are turning right into our development.
Yeah.
Correct.
So then beyond that to the west isn't the town of Cedar Lake. It's all county. So it's an interesting question because all around our South County area, we see this happen. 231, State Highway, US 41, larger highway naturally, US Highway, and I don't think I've ever seen another town have to do something in the county's jurisdiction. I don't know if I'm missing something around the south side or not, but 2 wrongs don't make a right, though, on the other hand. What we did do for Oak Brook, what was it, Greg? 3 years ago, we did in lieu of, we took money in lieu of, but that's in our town, in order to do a right turn lane and or to buy some land and or to donate it towards it if and when the state widens, which they are planning on widening. So it's an interesting question. Even MacArthur, I think we made that like contingent for their PUD to get started because they're racing the calendar. Contingent on engineering approval. So what if the engineering study gets finished, are you guys, and they say, oh my goodness, we have to have a right turn lane immediately? Is something in lieu of at the present time, or putting one in?
So that's an interesting question,
On the
Mr. Foreman. And I think if we take a look at the traffic study, again, I'm not an engineer, I'm reading the reports. Robin is at a class downstate, so she couldn't be here this evening. But Robin's traffic study enunciates that once this development is fully built out, meaning 28 units, taking into account then annual, I think it's 2% increases that are going to happen over time with 41 increasing from traffic to the south, and annual 4% increases from traffic to the east on 141st. When you add all those together in an alphabetic or in a math problem, it's at that point that we get to an F rating at 41st, right?
After being a flunk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, it doesn't mean that you shut it down, it just means at certain times of day that it's added at that point. Now, Robin's also of the opinion that if we were to present this to NDOT, they're going to look at it and say, well, if this only happens twice a day, this doesn't justify an intersection yet at this point, because if you're going to 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not a continual F throughout the day, so to speak. But point being is that a small piece of the math that's added to getting to that factor is my clients. There's the historical factor, there's future growth, there's ongoing growth to the south everywhere that's contributing to this. And to your point, I guess, there's maybe a couple different options here. And again, like I said, I appreciate that Don and his traffic engineer need further time to study it and then to come back to the policymakers for the town. I think there's a couple options that we have here this evening that I was going to share, and Dave, you let me know what your thoughts are. If indeed it's a policy decision that decides whether or not it's prudent to make an ask of my clients to contribute in some form to an intersection that's not owned by the town, that should probably be made, in my opinion, by elected officials. So a thought that I had would be that we could have approval this evening from this body pending further review from an appointed subcommittee of Mr. Sharp and Mr. Foreman within the next 3 weeks. That could happen so that we can achieve this deadline of April 1. And again, we can build in pursuant to that this evening that if my clients were to disagree with any recommendations that you gentlemen or another appointed group would make, that we could then come back before this body for further review. That was a thought that I had to keep spurring this along this evening.
Nathan, is 5 days a problem? This commission meets again on April 5th. I think it's April 5th. Or 5th, in work study session, special meeting could be conducted. Is 5 days going to impact adversely your client?
It will. I mean, I recognize that 5 days isn't a ton. My client has lined up some folks for excavating and for doing around the property, the erosion control, things of that nature.
Your clients own the property in fee simple?
Yes.
We did this for Baltimore. We let them start moving earth
And MacArthur, I think.
before approvals were finalized.
Yeah, I forgot about
I thought
Baltimore.
about it second after we talked.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a solution.
Right. And I guess if the commission is willing, I know it's more meeting time and everyone has a lot going on, but if that's something that we can commit to an April 5, turning that as well, work session into a public session. It's not optimal. I know my clients are chomping at the bit to spade dirt, and John's readying up his muscles for shoveling, but
I have a question, what do you mean by 5 days? It's the 15th today.
No, you were saying, he was saying
April
April 1st.
1 to April 5,
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, I mean, there's things that need to be ordered, and of that nature that I would like to do once I don't have approval. I don't want, I mean, 5 days doesn't sound like a lot, but basically if I got some good news tonight, I'd be placing orders tomorrow, not waiting till April 6th, 7th, 8th.
the other item is the bank loan for this particular development hinges on PUD approval, and if we have to wait another 15, 25 days, it's unclear as to what's going to happen with interest rates and the effect that that long-term has over development, so.
Well, again, I appreciate your advocacy on this point, but 5 days, giving us a bit of time, putting our heads together like was suggested today, and making sure that we go through this awfully carefully. You know, this was inevitable that we would get to this point, because it's all in the details now. It's a sophisticated project, it has a ton of legalities and engineering to it, and we're pulling that together. there's no question we're pulling that together, there's no obstacles to putting that together. But, you know, there's an order of doing things also. That order is having it ready versus not quite.
Well, I think that's why I lead in with the three topics that I did. The PUD is there except for the issue of whether or not the town is going to be making a request for some form of contribution to roadway improvements on 141st. It is in essence the last hurdle that we need to cross.
I mean, I can try to put a bow on this. The answer to that, I don't know, and that's the problem. We haven't had enough time to get through the most recent TIS submittal, which was last Tuesday. I think it's substantive enough to say that, I'm not saying anything's necessarily going to be recommended or any kind of, increases to traffic or anything like that from your client. The problem that I have right now is I can't make a recommendation either way. And the problem is if there is a need for future improvements, that needs to essentially be memorialized in an agreement that we're trying to approve tonight. And I don't have enough information, as I sit here now, to give any kind of recommendations to anybody on this board, yea or nay to it. So that's kind of where we're at. Engineering-wise, for the subdivision itself, I think we're really close. Jack and I worked through some stuff out today, but the traffic is still kind of the outlier right now.
Right.
And like I said, I'm not saying, A, B, or C. We just don't know right now, and that's my struggle right now.
When did you say you might have that done?
Till Friday, so that's what we're
You might
pushing
have it
for.
by this Friday?
Yes.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, Don, did we do a traffic study when Lennar was built? I thought we did, and they warranted no light was needed, no turn lane.
I don't remember. I'd have to look, possibly.
I remember talking about it with
Well,
Lennar.
this is complicated in the fact that they're constructing across from another entrance, whereas, Lennar lined up, it's different, traffic uses, it's different. Nate's completely right. The corridor is not great as we sit now.
It's terrible.
It's an odd intersection, so turning movements out of both those intersections, or out of the school intersection wasn't great. And, a level of service E isn't awesome. F is, worse, obviously, but, the impacts from this direct development are, we're getting to that. And is that a responsibility from going from E to F, or is it, something that's just not great? But in order to make a recommendation to this board, we need to get those, kind of vet that stuff out. If we need more analysis to get to that point, then so be it, but right now, we're just not to that point.
I guess a procedural question that I had is how close is the county to implementing the design that they've been stewing on since
No clue.
2018-19?
We did those plans for them. And like you said, I think we did them in 2018, 2019. And as far as I know, I have no idea. They needed to acquire it right away. And that wasn't really dependent on any studies. They were basically getting the biggest turn lane in that they possibly could without having to do wholesale utility relocation.
Mm-hmm.
So that turn lane isn't necessarily probably as long as it needs to be, but they maxed out what they could.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff in this study is showing, we start backing up so much that even if we do put in a turn lane there, and we have multiple left turners, we can't even get into a new right turn lane. So now we're stacking even longer. I get it, it's in county, it's NDOT, but we still have to look at, what the impacts are from this particular development and just try to vet out if there's anything we can do.
No, and I appreciate that. I think from my client's perspective is, so we're the last ones to the party, so to speak, on this 141st here. I think we just outlined there's a couple more that are coming east of 141st on the south side of the lake that are going to be at the table here in the next year or two. And my concern is I would not like to see this held up when my client's development is of such de minimis impact. And alternatively, the quicker we get shovels in the ground and get this rolling, this particular development provides an anchor for TIF funds, which can then be utilized to jet forward public infrastructure within the town, which is needed. So that's the balance, and I appreciate.
No, I understand and I agree with you. This needs to be looked at from a more holistic perspective, especially with the growth we've had over the last couple of years and coming, in the following years. But yeah, we just need to get to a point where we're comfortable with development and how it affects everything, because the last thing we want to do is, start stacking up monumentally more, and then have all the constituents, even if they're, barely outside of town or in town, start coming to the town and say, what did you do?
Well, one person that turns left screws up the whole road right now. It's a guaranteed fact, right?
Yeah.
Chris and Ashley, of the Lennar, $1,000 a house that was donated to town for infrastructure, I know we did some more road projects with some of that money. Is it gone?
No.
Okay. I also know that on 129th, we took in lieu of the turn lane some money because we knew NDOT's gonna be coming down the road, to widen the road. Where does the widening stop? Is it at 141st or beyond?
135th.
Just beyond, doggone
They said they were gonna go to 133rd, but they said they'd probably go to 135th.
it. Yeah.
And it was supposed to be done on 2022, but there's 160 parcels that they've gotta get property to put that turn lane in, and so right now they say it's 2025.
Their
2025, Bob?
future projection shows Q3 2025 for future improvement, and right now they are showing it going to 135.
So once a project like that gets let, or Mr. Asha, in your history, or Chris, once a project like NDOT project like that gets let, are the boundaries set in stone? They have to go back to the drawing board to extend it? Because I think we have unique circumstances to have them go another 9 blocks or 6 blocks.
We actually have more than just this project to be concerned about, them going south farther than 135th.
Correct.
I would not expect them to extend the current project. I
Okay.
could see them starting a future project, but then you're going further out into their queue. Money always being an issue with the state and time.
Gotcha.
I think they're planned out for 2029. What now?
Now I'm stuck here.
No, you're not.
Your client's good for something.
Thanks, Jeff.
I mean, what I'm hearing from both legal and our engineers that we need time. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, for sure. That's what you're saying.
I like what you guys have done. I like the whole project. I like what it's gonna do financially for the future of things here. Just to be on the safe side, I think we should take a little extra time and get it right, make sure that we get it right. And you're gonna want it right too, from a marketability standpoint and everything else. I don't think we're talking about a heck of a lot of time.
Well, it sounds to me like it's just our next meeting, right?
Well, I go back to Heather, Greg, John, Rick, I go back to if there was contingencies made, and if after 2 weeks, the study is done, and it warrants, yes, it would meet a turn lane at 41, is that a showstopper, or is it, should we negotiate, like what? That's the $1 million question, because we did do the same thing for the other industrial park and MacArthur, I know for sure.
I think we can take MacArthur off a comparison level, though. I mean,
Yeah, we had a deadline for school. I
For
get it.
school.
Yeah, I get it, Heather.
But so what was the reason, I know we did it for Boltzmann, but why did we do that for there? Refresh my memory.
Get the ground moving, so they didn't lose their spot with Dyer Construction, or whoever did their project.
But we weren't talking about a road issue at that point, or traffic study and a turn.
No, well, they were doing a turn lane on 41.
Right, so,
And this is actually connected to that industrial park, not that that should be any calculation.
But it is connected, yeah.
But again, all throughout South County, everywhere I've been, I've never seen a town go out of their way to widen and fix an intersection. Shoe Corner finally got done. Why? One reason, St. John annexed that area.
John, I'm not saying they're going to do that.
That
I'm
was
saying
a
that's the
partnership
the end.
of 3.
Yeah, I just want to keep the momentum going, you know.
He said it's a partnership of 3.
I was
Was it?
working for Commissioner Tippie at the time, and both St. John, Ileana Christian, and the county paid for that intersection. They
Oh.
split it 3 ways.
Awesome.
And I guess here's what I'm struggling to understand is we already know that intersection requires a right turn lane. That's a fact. That's been known since 2000, like I said, 18, 19. It's been studied, it's been planned for, it just hasn't been done yet. So the question that we're still further evaluating then, it seems to me, just so that I can put my finger on it, is does further study merit the fact that that should be expanded in any way? I think that's question one, right? And then question two is, to what extent, if any, does my client's development contribute or cause that? Because like I said, we've got all these other factors that are coming in.
That's why I asked Chris the question about
It
the
might,
Lennar.
it might not.
Yeah, that's one of several questions we just don't know the answer to right now.
And even if my clients do contribute to that, say 10, 15, 20%, I guess my client's position is, we've not asked for any public give in the entire development that we're doing. And instead, we're actually contributing to 141st improvements, and we're gonna be adding, once this development is done, $500,000 to $700,000 to the property tax rolls. So I think my clients are giving significantly, so I just share that as we move forward, and we're studying perhaps the addition of, I'm not sure, 5, 8 more cars widths or lengths to be added to potential turn lanes is what, in essence, we're studying here. I just wanna make sure we're all aware of what the issue is.
Those things you mentioned, plus engineering recommendations and conclusions will drive, I think, the policy decision by this board. Problem is, right now, at this time, we just don't have the ammo to make that decision.
Okay.
I'm not saying like John, anything is gonna be required at all, but I just don't have the tools to make it right now.
Sure, no, and I just wanted to narrow what.
Yeah, all those things I think are gonna be considered. I mean, I anticipate once we get the review done, we'll sit down with staff, go through all those items and see what responsibility, if at all, your client has. Whether that be extending a study, money, turn lanes, intersections, I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no to any of those right now.
But in the same respect though, if, they can start moving dirt now.
Yeah, I mean,
Without knowing that answer. Which basically you got your shovel in the ground then. You know, and if you already have the reports that state that you need a right turn lane at 41, what is your report gonna show? That you still need a right turn lane?
so kind of what's showing now is that if our queue lanes start going too long out there, there's no point for a right turn lane anymore. If you have enough people that wanna turn left, you're not stacking in the right turn lane. You still have the same problem, that right turn lane is now useless.
Yeah.
So there could be a potential of, so the highway balked at a certain length of that turn lane because they didn't want to get utilities. So there's a pole line out there on the north side of the road that they essentially started their taper because the only thing they would have to do was acquire right of way and not have to deal with moving an entire pole line. So if the study is showing that we're starting to stack more and more because of development, it doesn't matter if there's a right turn lane and going there at that side, it's going to be useless.
You know, in Wisconsin, getting off US 41, getting off Interstate 41, throughout that whole doggone state. 4-lane highways, 2-lane highways, they've got roundabouts everywhere. The state of Indiana putting a huge 2 or 3-lane roundabout on that intersection makes 110% sense. No stacking ever occurs, or if it does, it's rare. You know?
My hometown, Sheboygan, is.
Oh yeah, there's roundabout capital also.
Yeah, and I think from a public policy perception, my clients are willing to say, hey, what do you need from our studies, from some additional study?
Right.
To enable the policymakers here to go downstate. I mean, we are the corridor for South Lake County to get to North Lake County, and there's no reason why there shouldn't be dollars devoted to Cedar Lake for the pivotal role that we play when it comes to the corridor here in Lake County.
You brought up something earlier, Nathan, that I think needs, and of course it has nothing to do with what they're gonna do. I mean, what they're gonna do, they're in that corridor, they have to have access to that corridor. But if you brought up the development southeast of town, you're gonna, and I saw a sewer permit request for IDEM, I think is what it was, for 1,300 houses that are proposed. If there's no, they're gonna use that, people are coming from Illinois, they're going back to Illinois probably to work. You got 1,300 homes that are gonna be using that artery for vehicles as well. In addition, coming in from work and going to work in the morning, during school hours, during their business hours. Again, they're on that corridor, they have to be there, they have no other place to go. But if a traffic study is gonna be sought, well, maybe some of that other impact needs to be addressed in that as well. Just, to be diligent.
I agree, Mr. Parker. And Don and I have talked, and we're inheriting an existing problem, so it's much larger than just this particular development. The scope is much larger.
I agree,
I don't want my clients held up for a problem much larger.
And I don't either, because it's not, but you brought up a good point, it's not, what's proposed southeast town has nothing to do with their development, and it shouldn't affect what they have to do, but from a town perspective and the county perspective, that's gonna be the artery.
Yeah.
If I may, we're doing a lot of hypotheticals right now. I'm hearing from our town engineer and our town attorney that we need the 2 weeks for you to review the traffic study.
No, the legal
Is that what
said
you
that
said,
he
Dave?
would,
Did I hear something?
we had done this before.
There would actually be 3 weeks between this meeting and our April work session.
I mean, I feel like we just need to make a decision. We're like going off into 18 different spider webs at this point.
Well, I would say, I agree with Greg 100%, I agree with Heather as well. But I also agree with Mr. Austin saying how, we've done it before, so they can get turned into dirt.
I don't think there's an issue with them turning dirt though, is there?
Should be temporary permit, and off they go.
That's what I'm
Build the
thinking.
land.
What I'm trying to avoid is 87
I get you.
contingencies
Oh, I
wrapped
agree.
up in
I agree, Heather.
a potential possible
Yes,
approval.
we don't need that.
We're asking for 2 weeks at this point to, for the next, or 3 for the
3
next
weeks,
meeting.
yeah.
I don't feel like that's,
But if they do have excavators lined up to start April 1 and
make
the
a
kickoff,
motion then, my friend, let's get
that's
moving.
screws a month.
Make a motion.
Yeah. Oh, and the chairman
Let's see what the.
asks.
We gonna share that?
Yeah, I have a question. Is that traffic, like you're talking about 1,300, was it 1,300 homes or something?
That's what, I believe the number was on the permit
Is that gonna be
application.
taken into account into this new study, or the study that?
Well, that's what I was hoping would spur some thought, because sometimes we have the cart behind the horse.
Well, I mean, and all that can be done before the 5th, or, be done prior to the 5th, so that we can have the meeting on the 5th. But what about?
I don't know if that affects I don't feel like that affects what you need to do, but I think if we're gonna do a traffic study, that needs to be looked at too.
Well, I mean, I would think, and that's what Nathan was just talking to Nathan about was, I would think that would have, if you were gonna ask any developers, myself included, or anybody else on 141st, to do some sort of contribution, well, surely you've gotta look at the 1,300 that might be down the road.
I would agree with you.
But then how do you come up with any kind of contribution level? Well, how do you do that? It seems impossible to me, but that's why I have Nathan. He's a little busted up, but he's a smart guy.
That would get handled in impact fees, in my view, for some, but no one's had the courage to take that on in the past thus far. If that had been taken on, we wouldn't be having a discussion about who's gonna pay for it. You know what I mean?
I just don't want it to be me.
There's likely going to be a townwide traffic study done shortly.
We need
as part of a broader road impact fee.
Well, and the road impact fee, because we have no east-west artery in our community. And when we do stop at Parish and jog down a half a mile, it's a disaster.
So, Mr. Kafira, and I agree with Heather as well, we're starting to get to a point in those meetings where we can see things, and I don't want to get to that point. My client's perception is we want to do this right, we want to do what's fair here. While they'd love to start pitching dirt, we also don't want to be pitching dirt and then we're negotiating 3 weeks from now over something.
Well, I think you're right, Heather's right, I agree with that. We need to traffic study. I think we should do something here to allow your client, because this is a good project for the town. And I think we should do something here so that they can start moving dirt. Everything goes in order, when you're building something. And you can't start at the top, only if you dig a hole, then you can start at the top, That's supposed to be funny. But I think we should figure out something here to allow them to start pushing dirt. If they got the contractors lined up and that. And then by the next work session, we'll have some information and studies to figure out, what actually has to be done. Now, we can't do anything at 41. But how to make the traffic flow or not stack as much in front of the school and going to the rail side, site.
The ultimate goals where we want to be in, Friday or Monday is, we want to know definitively what the impact of this development is on the current corridor. And there's also future projections in that same study that give us an idea of what's happening beyond it. We want to be armed with that information to, say what the issues are, if they're the responsibility of this petitioner or not, or if it's long-term future planning that needs to be taken into account, then so be it, but we just need to get there.
Well, let's allow them to get their feet dirty and, keep it open.
Before we get to a motion and what's sounding like a deferral, do we want to open the floor for public comment?
I'm not done yet,
Okay.
all right? I'm only on item 2.
Okay.
Okay, so let me run the meeting here. Thank you. I still say I think we should think about this to allow them to start moving dirt until we get the information that Don needs. But that would help them out in that respect. Now, do you have more you want to present?
No,
That was it?
that was it.
All right, then, we'll move forward with the, agenda here. Town engineer, we've been hearing from him, so. Building department,
Right now, our recommendation is trying to go through that deferral. Let us have that 3 weeks to really hammer things out with the petitioner, get things together, get you guys clean PUD documents to review, and then look at hosting a special public meeting April 5th at your next work session.
so your recommendation is for deferral,
Our recommendation is for a deferral tonight.
okay? All right, I'm gonna call for remonstrators now. Are there any remonstrators for or against this project? Any remonstrators for or against? Last call. Do I close it, Mr. Austin?
Anyone, let's see,
If
anyone
you're
online?
going to defer or entertain a motion to defer, I would not close the public hearing.
Okay, I'll leave the public hearing open. Well, we've had a lot of discussions from the commissioners. Do we have any more?
I have one more,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Austin, is the PUD ready to go?
No,
Okay.
the ordinance is ready, the attachments are not.
Will they be ready in 2 weeks?
Depends.
3 weeks.
The answer is probably yes. 2 weeks or 3 weeks, John?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3.
April 5th.
And Mr. Han, Rob, do you miss your window with your so-called scheduled folks?
If we're gonna have a meeting, a special meeting on the 5th is what I understand, or you're gonna have a special meeting on the 5th, and we can get approval, then, I mean, that works for us.
Okay. We want to work with you guys. This is a big thing for our town.
Yes.
These are TIF lots. It's going to only help that whole area. B3 zoning, we all know it's just a matter of time till businesses come to town. We need people that can work here and drive to work. I mean, live here and drive to work. We don't need to all drive to Illinois every day, or Champaign or Peoria, right? You know, it'd be nice to have some nice companies.
Okay, so then you would say that you would accept the deferral till, was it the 4th?
The 5th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion if you're okay.
Do I have to request it, or do we just,
No, he's good.
okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, based on conversation, that we defer to the 5th. this
And
Sunday.
continue the public hearing?
And continue the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Foreman, seconded by Ms. Deschar to defer this matter to, April 5th, and leaving the, public, portion open.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Just final postcoded to this. It's very light, this is a PUD. I looked at the statutes again. You inspired me today, Nathan. Thank you. You may impose reasonable conditions. There's like this gray in contracting the zoning and the plan. And while it may not be understandable when you get a recommendation from staff and/or petitioner and council, it's probably going to be in there somewhere where the solution is. So that's what we'll be working on over the next 3 weeks, solution.
Okay,
Not sure we'll be able to explain it, but that's how it'll probably go down.
Okay, that sounds good, so we should have quite a bit of information for that, April 5th meeting.
You'll have more information than you want. There'll be a lot.
Okay, sounds great. All right, I got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carnahan?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Deshauer?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Capora?
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Also,
I think so.
one more item. If it's okay with the commission, if I can zoom in on that date, I had a planned family vacay from about 3 months ago, so,
Want to break together?
How's that gonna impact that?
yeah, don't talk to my bride about that, she's pretty down about it. So if it's okay, I'll have to zoom in that evening.
We'll get you a Zoom link.
Ashley, don't we need a second deferral
For the rezone, yeah.
also? Or do we?
What do you mean?
Well, it's a primary plat. Second
Yeah.
part is the plat.
Okay.
So you did not act on the plat, I don't think. It was kind of generic, though, the motion.
Right, but we had 2 items on here to vote for, so I kept them separate.
Okay.
So we really should vote on the next one.
Right, the second motion is.
I'd like to make a motion regarding the rezone to be deferred to the April 5th special public meeting that we will hold.
I'll second that as well.
Motion made by Mr. Foreman and seconded by Ms. Deshauer to defer the recommendation regarding rezoning to the April 5th special public meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carnahan?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes?
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Deshauer?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Capora?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Yes, and feel free to zoom.
Okay, sounds good, appreciate it. We'll see everyone in
Show us
3
some
weeks.
sand or something, though, I don't want to.
Oh, and I don't want folks getting mad at me or, you know.
No
jumping
car
and
alarms
stuff.
in the background.
Or I see my kids in the background. Thanks. See ya.
already almost breaking split right before vacation.
Timing's everything.
Okay, number 2. Culver site plan, owner petitioner Cedar Lake RELLC, John Ryan Terpstra, 1131 Fairbanks Court, Crown Point, Indiana, vicinity of 9717 West 133rd Avenue, Cedar Lake. Petitioner is requesting site plan approval for a new restaurant. Petitioner present or online?
He is not, he reached out, Monday, stating he was likely gonna be requesting a deferral. He did send a request for a deferral today. It is the last item in your iPad. Engineering just not where it needs to be, so they're requesting a deferral to the April meeting.
So April what?
April meeting.
The April, work session?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
yes.
All right, there's been a request for deferral to April 5th work session on this item. Can we have do we need to go through the agenda with the, town engineer or anything?
No.
No?
No.
No, then I need a motion to defer this to the April 5th work session.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Carnahan, seconded by Mr. Parker. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carnahan?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Ms. Deshauer?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Capora?
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I also talked to Attorney Terpstra today, and I want to assure you, based upon that discussion, they're anxious to get going. His engineer has been unavailable and out of the office for most of the last month. And that held up him fine tuning and finishing so that it was clean for Don and for you.
Yeah, he was in contact with me too, so we just got this resubmitted Friday.
Culvers wants to be in Cedar Lake.
Yeah.
So,
Well, from the information that Ashley sent us, it seems like 99% of the stuff that you sent him has been answered.
Yeah, I mean, the engineering comments are rather minor in the first review, it just got submitted late and didn't get a chance to get into it.
Yeah,
So, I don't see any issues moving in April.
That's why we're asking the special meeting consideration.
Sure.
So, they have the same situation as these folks.
Yeah, good.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I have something that I'd like to say to staff. Some of my comments in prior meetings might have been construed as an attack on Cedar Lake staff. My intentions were not meant in that way, any shape or form. I think you folks do a good job. And I think sometimes you gotta take lemons and make lemonade. I just wanna see the lemons we're making lemonade out of, and I wanna know who squeezed them, that's all. So, after that, I have no issues with you folks, do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, update items. Building regs, and I'll combine number 2, the 133rd Street Commercial Corridor moratorium.
We're tracking to a public hearing on April 19th on the corridor moratorium project. The building permit fee is not ready. The staff's still working, we're awaiting some detailed data.
Yeah, as well as, we met about the subdivision control ordinance, which will likely be coming around the same time. I think we were shooting for, May, for presentation on that. We've got to go a little more into the, details in that. There's going to be coincided with the floodplain ordinance as well. So those were all generally tracked together. So that way they're all referenced back and forth, and it's, or if they are clean documents.
As a matter of fact, the other day, Chris coordinated, facilitated our discussion on that with Don, myself, Ashley. So it's in process, for sure.
Okay, good. Number 3, Beacon Point East, Unit 1, performance letter of credit expires May 4th, 2023.
Was it this one they're looking at rolling into maintenance?
Yeah, I can knock these out. Jack sent an email yesterday. We're looking to do Beacon Point East Unit 1 and 2, moving them both to maintenance before the expiration. We got some small inspection work to finish on that, but that should be in good order. Beacon Point West Unit 5, they're going to extend that for a year, but ask for a reduction to the maximum reduction allowable, which is I think around $200,000 on that one, give or take-ish. Hanover School Corporation, Public Works met Skillman and School Corporation out there about 3 weeks ago, still had issues. We don't have as-built, so that one's most likely going to be extended in some form or fashion. I don't know if it's going to be reduced, but it's kind of in their court. Public Works to let them know issues, and they need to correct some of them. And then Perez, I think, is going to extend, so.
Okay, that clears that up. Public comment. Public comment?
Hello,
Hi, name and address, please.
my name is Brandalyn Chalmers. I'm at 7416 West 142nd Avenue. I guess I'm not even sure that I'm in the right spot, but I've spoken with a couple of people just trying to see if we can get ordinance change to embrace the idea of poultry and or livestock even, being that we're in a season of food insecurity. And so I guess, would that be something that I should address here?
It's in your zoning ordinance under chapter 5, section B, I believe. Poultry, livestock, chickens, ducks, fowl, they are not allowed in anything that is not zoned agriculture, and it's got to be an acreage of 8 acres or greater.
Is this us or BZA?
That's zoning ordinance. If they want to, they can go in front of the BZA and they can request a variance.
That's in the current zoning ordinance,
Mhm.
and that's already adopted.
Correct. It would have to be an amendment to the zoning ordinance to then remove or change the language from chapter 5.
And you're requesting an amendment to that ordinance, correct?
I guess if the amendment would be the verbiage you would use for all people in town limits to have access to poultry, outside of like an HOA or something specific to a subdivision, not
So-
just my personal property.
So who would address that?
It would be the planning commission, they would have to determine if a amendment to the zoning ordinance is allowable to remove the agricultural uses in the chapter 5 and allow it to where it could be more than just that agricultural uses, just so everybody has it. It's notwithstanding any other provisions of this zoning ordinance as amended from time to time, which may conflict herein. The raising, holding, keeping, or possessing any livestock, poultry, fowl, or other animals where raised, held, kept, or possessed for personal or commercial uses, and or the constructing, erecting, altering, improving, remodeling, or moving any accessory stable, building, structure, or enclosure of any type or any kind associated with the raising, holding, keeping, or possessing of such livestock, poultry, fowls, or other animals shall be permitted only upon those tracts of land consisting of 8 acres or more. This section doesn't prohibit the use of cats and dogs.
So this would be a recommendation if this was found favorable by the plan commission to make a change to the zoning ordinance, which would then go to the town council.
The city of Chicago allows people to have chickens.
Oh, Bob, do not compare us to the city.
Yeah, well.
No.
The town of Lowell does as well.
No. Well, Chris, that's.
The town of Lowell does?
I was gonna ask you that question. You've been affiliated with a couple of
Town
businesses.
of Lowell does, and it is extremely restrictive.
Meaning how? Can you give us an example?
Virtually no residential lot could put it in. There are, and it's been 6 years since I've looked at the ordinance, but there are setback restrictions. When we created the ordinance, we even restricted the amount of animals that anyone could have on their property down to 4, which included cats or dogs. So if you had 4 cats and you wanted chickens, you had to pick which ones you wanted. We restricted how close they could be to neighbors. The fact that you could not have male roosters.
I can see that.
It was very restrictive, again, to the point to where you pretty much had to have an agricultural site.
Did lot size factor into that?
Lot size did factor into that, given setbacks, accessory buildings, things of that nature, placement of the chicken coops.
Because now you're talking an accessory building, like you said, which our limit in this town is 2.
Yes.
And a total maximum accessory structure size. So if somebody already has 2 sheds and then they want a chicken coop, they're gonna need to go in front of the BZA and ask for a variance, and then they're gonna have to prove their hardship. But at that point in time, they've now created their own hardship.
Ma'am, out of curiosity, are you part of a group that you're trying to do this for, or are you just curious on your behalf and you want to share this with the town, or I guess what's your motivation? So I'll know how to help.
So I'm in a homeschooling community group,
Okay.
and I'm in a homesteading community group, and so there are lots of different groups that I'm part of, and just in conversation, this comes up often, and I think that the trend is leaning into lifestyles that promote self-sufficiency, and all of us being, having a chair in watching this craziness that's happened the past 3 years. I think that it's a common sense move, we see food insecurity, we see continued battering rams, just, and everything feels very unstable. So it's mostly just advocating for the people that I'm talking to, many of which are locals, but even, some outside, and I know that Crown Point has people going to meetings as well.
Yeah.
And Dyer even has people going to meetings as well, so.
And your goal is just chickens, or what are we talking about?
I would love to be able to raise small livestock. I think that, given the circumstances, that a self-sufficient lifestyle is something that would be the goal, if we can't rely on our industrial food supply.
How big is your property?
We're almost an acre. I want to say .83, but I wouldn't quote that. But it's definitely enough to sustain.
Once upon a time, not many years ago, anyone in Cedar Lake could have a horse or a cow.
Yeah.
There might have been a restriction, but I don't think a lot of people enforced it, but.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that the
we're in the process now of really putting in a lot of new roads, a lot of storm drainage.
Yeah.
To control the runoff, and try to clean the lake and put in, catch basins for the lake and everything else. So you live just right over here, correct?
The only-
Yeah.
Couple blocks down.
Those 2 blocks away,
Just last
yeah.
146.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Mhm.
Price of eggs could make one easily say, hey, this is a great idea. We're getting ripped off on eggs, right?
Sure, well, I think people are going ahead, you know, I would just love to make it legal for them, you
That's a
know.
challenge.
Well, and the culture of Cedar Lake is shifting, and so, to do it in a right way, where the structures are kept up and, you know, animal care is within certain limitations, and, you know, it's with respect to everybody else's property, but those are all doable things with certain verbiage, and then reinforcement, the same as other towns do, so I just feel like, given the climate that we find ourselves in, it's a discussion that can be had.
I think it's a great question, and ma'am, I think you're right, a lot of people just do it.
Yes.
I see a lot of homes, and I, you know, in the backyard, and I look, and I'm like, oh, there's a chicken coop, I don't really think we're supposed to have chicken coop here.
Yeah.
So I know it does happen a lot, and I get it, I mean, I just talked to someone today who was going to get chickens, and I think it's a great idea, there's a lot of mechanics behind that.
Yeah.
You're kind of opening the floodgates, so to speak, when you start to allow that, because then it's, who's gonna manage it, who's gonna police it? How do your neighbors feel, you know,
Mhm.
they didn't sign up to live next to chickens. You know, there's just a lot to it. I think you just dropped a bomb on us that we need to think about a little bit, if that's okay.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
I'd like
Yeah.
to do a little research on it and see what other communities are doing.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because it is part of the zoning ordinance, anybody who wants to have chicken coops and chickens are allowed to come in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a developmental variance. It is not prohibited that they can't request a variance, they just have to prove the 3 findings of fact to be able to get an approval.
Yeah, I don't know how you make that a hardship though when Strachan Van Til's in town, you know?
Well, we did approve one on 142nd on the west side of the lake.
The reality of that, Ashley and everyone else, is that the people who are trying to do it the right way are going to take that route, but there is a large handful of people that are just gonna go ahead and do it. The
Mhm.
people that are trying to do it the right way are gonna try to come, and there isn't a hardship for that, you can go to Strax. So they're going to get denied when, you know, Joe down the street is just gonna build a chicken coop and throw a tarp over it and act like it didn't happen.
Our
And she's trying to do it the right way.
Our inspectors have been pretty prevalent in ensuring that violations are not occurring. They are currently going out and finding work that is being done without permit, work that is not being done allowed per ordinance, and they are putting work orders on it. So I don't want to have people just going and doing it, and then they're getting stop work orders or they're getting violation fees, because now you're violating our town code, our zoning ordinance.
Our staff should be worried about things like buildings and things, you know. Do we want to start policing chicken coops? Do we have the staff to police chicken coops?
That's a policy.
How many
We have to
domestic
get
animals can you have in a residential zone right now, per the zoning ordinance?
3.
3 cats, 3 dogs, or a mix of both.
Or like Chris said, like in Lowell, it would be 2 dogs and 1 chicken, right? 3 total.
Well, in Lowell, the number is 4 allowable, but yes, here in Cedar Lake it's 3. So yeah, you would have to choose a mix of, you
So
could have no more than 4
If it was
domestic
4, you
animals.
could have 2 cats, 2 dogs, or 3 dogs and 1 cat, or that's how it works.
Yeah. Or if you had the land available in the town of Lowell.
How are we enforcing that ordinance, I wonder?
Depends if I see 4 fluffies out in your front yard.
I tend to think practically, so it's impossible to.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I want to see the ordinance changed. I think the ordinance is good the way it is. I personally, if you got an acre or less, I don't think you have any business having some sort of livestock or chickens or pigs or whatever on your property. If that's what you want to do, then go out and buy a farm.
I think that's difficult though, John. It's not 10, 15 years ago maybe, but now where could you go buy an acre? There's,
It ain't easy.
the opportunity is not there like it was.
Yeah, I do understand that, what I'm saying is because they live in a residential area in town, they want us to let them have chickens or pigs or something, and I don't think we should change the ordinance. If they want to try to get that, then they need to come to the BZA.
And what are you gonna tell them at the BZA?
I'll let Greg do the talking there. Well,
Under the
you know,
bus,
like Greg said, you have to do a little more research. I'm just saying, I don't think it's wise for the town to change the ordinance.
Yeah,
But we need to find out if she's gonna wind up at the BZA, and I'm on the BZA, and so is Greg. We need to do some research to find out what other towns are doing, or how much land you actually need to, what do you wanna raise, a miniature cow or something, or?
Well, at this point, I would idealize about some sheep, but if I were only allowed to do chickens, that's kind of my happy medium point. I think that chickens are logical, but I do think that in allowance, considering the climate that we're in, if there was, and granted, like you said, supporting the animal with your land, how much land you have is important. So if that was something that needed to be looked at and with research to make sure that the animals are being, given enough property space to do what they need to do, then, but I do think that chickens, you have backyard chickens everywhere. Chickens can live off of a very small plot of land. And, in allowance, I think that the ordinance could specify those things.
Yeah, where it gets tricky is the person has a small lot,
Yeah.
already has an outbuilding, already has a shed, or whether, and then they add this, and then the neighbor wants a shed, and say, well, you let him have a shed for chicken coop.
Sure.
And it just becomes a tit for tat.
I
But
think-
for your study group, I heard a saying once, so since you're talking livestock,
Yeah.
bulls and cows, the bulls in a storm, okay? Let's say thousands of years ago, nobody taught, there weren't people with sheep, since you brought sheep up as well,
Mhm.
herding these bulls, or these buffalo, I should say, to one spot or another. But when a storm comes up, it comes out west. Where do the buffalo run? They run west. Nobody can quite figure it out, I believe. But cows, they run east. So soon the buffalo's sitting in nice warm sunshine. The storm passes. Poor cow, he just keeps getting ran into.
what's an idea?
If you can figure out if that's true, I'd like to know.
I'll let you know.
Did you get all that? Did you get all that? You want
I
to
was
this meeting
I was
anyway?
following, but I do know this is recorded, so.
No,
And it's on everywhere.
And I'm
gonna keep an open mind to this.
That was straight out of Billy Madison.
I was gonna say, as a board, can we keep this on the table and like we all said, do a little bit of research and like circle back to it? I don't wanna say no at all. I think it's worth
They asked the question.
of review.
See how many people.
Mr. Foreman?
I personally
We're just
I don't think we should change our ordinance. I think
I think you're only gonna get two answers.
8 acres, or maybe if a person has 5, there's no one on each side, but again, it's a slippery slope. The runoff goes where? Our whole town has a lake basin, it all goes into the lake. We've done so much to try to clean our town. We used to have septic fields everywhere going in the lake. And one could argue there's just chickens. One could argue, well, look at all the geese coming by and sitting on the ice and leaving their clippings.
No,
But that's just my opinion.
But I do do
I
research.
respect you very
Sure.
much, you're well-spoken.
It's a big
Thank
topic
you.
right now.
Thank
I
you.
know it is. I
It's a
know
big
there's,
topic.
It's a big topic.
I hear about it and I see it and I read about it all the time on social media, on the
All the
newspaper.
Yes.
So I think it's a valid question. I appreciate you taking time out of your life to come and ask us
Sure.
about that, and I
I'm
think
happy to.
we should research it.
And tomorrow, I go to the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and I'm gonna ask, the different municipalities.
that's a great idea, Bob.
Lake and Porter and LaPorte County, how many of you have, permit chickens?
I think that's a great idea. Can you promise me you're gonna wear that bow tie, though?
I may.
I think that's gonna get some answers.
Hey, would you mind coming back to a later meeting
I'd be happy to.
and see what information gets gathered?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like
That
Bob's already
sounds
gonna do a lot of digging. Can you make up a spreadsheet?
It's a start.
It's a start, yes. Yeah.
I've also made some contacts in becoming the planning director. I will reach out to some of them, see what any of them can tell me.
Okay,
you.
great.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do any legwork that y'all feel might benefit the task. I'll fill out a volunteer form and,
Bring omelets.
I think, just so.
Could you bring omelets to the
Yeah.
next meeting?
Bring it.
I can.
So you're not wasting your time, if you can give maybe your contact info to Ashley, and after we gather some information, she can maybe shoot you an email and say, hey, if you can make it to the next meeting or the next couple of meetings, that way you're not just kind of coming and waiting for us.
Perfect.
Is that okay, Ashley? Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And you would be under public comment again. So, you know, that comes at the end of the meeting, so
Okay,
you don't necessarily have to sit through an hour or so.
so come later is your time?
Yeah.
Ashley can let you know how much is on the
She puts you on the
agenda.
agenda, then you won't have to stay till the end of the meeting.
Oh, I see, yes, okay,
Or just come late and
come later.
towards the end.
Okay.
I admire your thought process though, and I think people should be as self-sufficient as they can. I know it's not popular.
Thank you.
I agree. I like it.
I think it's trending, that's for
It's,
sure.
yeah.
Out of necessity, not out of
Right.
like a fad. It's
Yeah.
people are worried and.
Exactly.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
I'm
put
curious.
on Facebook, a guy proposing to a girl to get married, and he told him a dozen eggs.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
I know,
never rain.
it's
I
meme
get it.
mania out there with the egg prices.
That's funny, I like that.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
6
you
bucks
very
a
much.
dozen roughly is what they are now.
I don't need them anymore. I stopped. Too cheap.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Any other public comment? No other public comment? We're adjourned.